well, having a chat with you, Ivana, is really quite a special thing, because I've read so many things about you and the techniques that you use, and it really is just a pleasure to have you today, an hour of your time.
The pleasure is mine.
I was going to introduce you, but then I thought it's always a bit awkward, isn't it? So would you like to kind of maybe just start with, how did you start out in the industry? Can you give us some, a little bit of background of where you've come from to where you are today, kind of thing?
That is a longer, boring story about me. I always like to talk about other people. It's kind of makes me feel good to understand how my story relates to other people's stories. That allows them to explore the things that make them insecure, their fears, their traumas, and how to use it in their work. And introducing myself in terms of, like, the things that I've accomplished. I'd rather have you talk about that. But what I can say is why and how I created this technique, which is based and take the pain, the insecurities and fears and dramas of the character, and use that instead of to self-destruct with, but to rather construct and empower your ability to overcome and win whatever the objective is. And then in personalization of the characters' fears and dramas and uh, issues, that it allows you to find some kind of solving, resolution, catharsis, and exploring the pain that you have had in your life. So you're not using this and sitting in your darkness. And so many actors end up sitting in the things that they bring up. And what happens is it kind of sticks like glue and it feels awful. And so you want to be able to take that same information and be able to grow and evolve and change and learn from it. How do you do this? There's a 12-step program to make that so, called the Chubbuck technique. But why I came up with that is because I had a very traumatic childhood. There was a lot of physical and emotional and verbal abuse. My mother is mentally ill, also a hoarder, and pathological liar. There's all kinds of things that she was a gift that kept on giving, and a really good thing for the arts. And my father, who's a wonderful, wonderful man, he just was a workaholic, and he chose to kind of take a blind eye to what was going on with all the abuse to me and my sisters and brothers. And so it became an idea of all this stuff coming at me, not knowing how to deal with it as a child, and self-destructing, getting involved with drugs, um, getting involved with being very extremely self-destructive and sabotaging, and as well as just not having any friendships, not being able to know how to communicate with people. So what I did was I tried to think, what can I do instead of destroying myself, which I was doing a lot? How do I look at my life as being something that I can embrace this? And where can you embrace these very things, but in the arts? And that's all the arts, not just acting, it's writing, directing, also dancing, painting, novelists. I mean, all the arts are included in doing this. If you look at like Moby Dick,
Yeah.
Herman Melville didn't write it. It's not about whales. He wrote about his demons, facing his demons. And through facing his demons and the metaphors and the symbolism of his work, it became something that we allowed him to really look at his own demons and how to kind of find some kind of resolution and catharsis within that, and therefore becoming a great American novel, iconic novel. How do we create iconic performances or directorial or writing? Is by taking the same kind of notions of, like, through the character first, breaking down the characters' issues, what they need to overcome, and what they need to win and resolve and have catharsis for. And then the personalizations allow us to be able to find our way to some version of resolution to our personal current things that we're dealing with. And therefore, then the audience subliminally picks that up because human beings have the same primal realities of issues and fears and insecurities and dramas and things, bad things that have happened to them. And so it helps, like, it doesn't matter what country you come from, what culture you come from. The bottom line is the human animal is the same. I've done workshops all over the world. My book's been translated into languages all over the world, and I get the same thing all the time, which is this has really helped me in my, not only in my performances or my writing or whatever, but also in my life. Um, and and so the audience is watching TV, watching theater, whatever they're doing, is they're going like, God, if that person can take the same stuff that I'm feeling and do something about it and learn from it and evolve from it, maybe so can I. It gives hope. And to me, that is the obligation of the artist. An artist has the obligation to empower the world through the arts. Really, really important obligation. But also, it's the obligation that feels good. It feels good to
Mm,
be able to do that.
yeah,
So it's not, it's most of the time when you think of obligatory things, obligation sounds like a bad thing, but this is one of those joyful things. Like, I see people's lives change. Someone who couldn't get pregnant got pregnant and is about to have a baby, but the doctor told her she couldn't give birth when we were using, um, well, she couldn't even conceive, they told her. But we were using in the work, at the underbelly of the choices that we're using is stuff to give her knowledge of why her body wouldn't conceive, what was going on that subconsciously
yeah,
that she needed to reveal, explore, understand, so she wouldn't have to do it anymore through the work,
yeah.
through the actual script itself. So it's a really kind of really curious and interesting and fascinating process. Sorry, I do go on. I do go
No,
on.
I mean, honestly, I think
We
it's
probably
so
got two
interesting.
questions out. That's
That's
one
fine.
question. Half hour later.
I think we've actually had, there was an article out on Spotlight, Ivana Chubbuck, Advice to Actors. And obviously in preparation for today, again, reread it. And there's a really interesting, it says, a lot of great advice to actors to help them improve and hone the craft. Here are just a few of my top pieces of advice to actors embarking on a career in this demanding industry. One that really came out for me is point number 3 in the article: celebrate your flaws, your fears, and your insecurities. Now, for me, that is, I think, even more poignant in 2020, because we've been made as a whole world to stop and really reflect on life itself. And personally, I didn't actually have that opportunity much before. I kind of knew things were going on and there were some difficulties, but I didn't ever have the time to really think about them. And then this year, it's like a mirror's been held up, and it's like, you're going to have to look at some of this stuff in order to kind of use it to move forward and to progress yourself. And I think that's really interesting. And that point from that article, I just thought really kind of sums up for me what you want to embody as an actor. You want to, see those flaws, see those fears and insecurities played out in front of you. That's when you connect with a performance, isn't it, really?
Well, a couple of issues on that. The pandemic and the shutdown has forced us to look at things that were already there, but we always had a chance to run away from them, but there's no place to run anymore. So the good news about the pandemic is you're kind of forced to have to kind of look at the very things that you have shame from. And my technique is about taking this very things that cause you shame and to actually see it as something that's gifts, gold, your colors to work with as an artist, and it makes you unique and special. Because if say if a person is in life is very pulled together, they seem to always have everything that's, they always can figure out ways to access through their troubles and stuff. I find it a little off-putting. Most people do, because it's like, why are you so pulled together? But the people we relate to are the people that the more screwed up they are, the more like, I get that person. And all the things that make us laugh or cry is because it's their quirks that come from their insecurities, the quirks that come from the bad things that have happened to them and how they've negotiated with through the lens of that information, makes really interesting behavior. Oftentimes really funny. That's how we get really, comedic performances. But also it gives us the pathos, because what we do in our insecurities, or we create behaviors like OCD, for example. And that's a really interesting trait for a character, or a person that is always like very anal about things, and that creates really interesting behavior. Or a person who has to live in squalor because it protects them. It's a protecting mechanism, so that you can't hurt me. So I'm going to have a whole bunch of things that are, and it creates again behavior, and the connection that we have with our set decorator, with our director, with our props person. We're all working this together. So we're creating an environment from within, from without, that tells a story that's not just like a plot driven story, but one that needs to be told.
I mean, another a key thing, number 2, which is in this one, again, which is really interesting. Don't play the character, be the character. Now, I know that might sound very simple, but I imagine that is where a lot of people come unstuck. Just my experience of watching some self-tapes that actors have given to me to forward on to casting directors. You can see the mechanics working in a performance. And obviously that's what you don't want, isn't it? You want to just see them being in that moment.
There's a lot of work to, there's so much work to create that seamless, I am that person. You can't just like just be, because being, you're going to find yourself trying to figure out what that means. And so I use this example. I would say to you, Mel, do you like being lied to? And of course you would say, no, nobody likes being lied to. I don't care which part of the world you're from. Nobody likes being lied to. So if you're pretending to be someone, what is that? A big lie. If you're saying, I'm not really this person, I'm playing a character that's a killer, or I'm not really this person, but I'm playing this, that's lying to people. So immediately, so it's not just the idea like what's good acting, but what makes people want to watch that TV show, that play. They want to be able to relate. And if they feel lied to, they're going to turn the channel to somebody who's going to tell them the truth about, and embrace the very things that I watch, just going, God, that person has so much courage to expose that stuff with pride, no less. Maybe I can too. It's really it's a symbiotic relationship between audience and the writer, producer, and director. It's symbiotic. We're all learning from each other. We're all growing from each other. And I think it's important to come from that point of view when you were doing script analysis. So becoming the character helps it become more relatable, and therefore more accessible for people to really look at their stuff with saying that it's embraceable, as opposed to something that you have to pretend doesn't exist.
Yeah. And another point is anger moves mountains, sadness digs a hole. I wonder if you could just expand on that a little bit for our members today.
Well, the things, we want to always be proactive. I would say make the choices that create your need to organically want to do something about it. Because I don't, watching somebody just complain and feel sad and say my life sucks and I'm a victim, is people that we don't want to be around for free. Why would we pay money to see them? So those are people that are annoying. It's like, oh, my life is so bad. And I just feel like this person is hurting my feelings all the time. And like, those are people that um, are victims in the world. And what we want to do is take the same information that that person feels and say, what do I do about it? How do I change that circumstances? How do I explore growth from it? And also be able to find aha moments, epiphanies from it. And that's exciting to watch. And that's why anger, it makes us do things we normally wouldn't do. It pushes us to do things that we normally would be like, oh, I can't do that. But anger just has its own energy. It's got adrenaline. Adrenaline is attached to our natural speed that happens in our body. So it creates a push that we can't control. It's wonderful. So you get to those urges and impulses that only anger could bring up, where sadness makes you want to put a blanket over your head and just go and do nothing. I always say sadness kind of drips to the ground, and anger kind of pushes you through to do things that, like, oh, where did that come from? And those are the best acting moments, is when you surprise yourself.
Oh, I love that. That's a great one. Greatness is in the details.
Mhm.
That really intrigues me. Are we talking about, taking, obviously a lot of people will be doing virtual auditions at the moment and being given scripts, and it is harder to work in person with people. But how would you, if an audition is coming up, is there any kind of tips that you can give people who are given the script, how to approach it, and what to do as they create that self-tape for the casting director and producer?
Well, the more it's hard to describe in like a magic pill form, but the reason why I created the 12-step system was because when I was an actress, I found that so many of the books about acting were very philosophical or theoretical, that I didn't know what to do. It wasn't practical to me. So in order for you to say you're 38 years old, and you're trying to create a 38-year-old woman, you have to, what makes us who we are in today's world is 38 years worth of experiences, and then our reactions to those experiences, and then people's reactions to our reactions, and that's why I have 7 brothers and sisters, and we're all quite different, even though we have the same parents, because we have that offshoot of this subset of our experiences through peers, through age differences where my parents were at, and the new incoming of children that were 7 brothers and sisters with. So you have the details. What's interesting about people is their details of who they are specifically, not just a generic. So many times actors try to get to these emotional places and they just try to do a mush of that emotion. Well, that's not very interesting, because it's not like everybody can have that mush of anger, that mush of um, of glee, or that mush of falling in love, and it's a mush. It's the details. If you look at any painting, or you look at any writing, or any form of art, it's in the details that make for greatness. But you could be really good by doing the mush, but I always tell my people, it's like, good's not good enough. I want extraordinary. I don't want ordinary. And in order for you to be extraordinary, it's the details of, like, and how to do those details, and bringing in the different elements of the past, how it creates the present, and then therefore the future, how we create, like, why we dress the way we dress, why we wear our hair the way, why, what our predilections are, what our anger bases are, what our issues are with our mates, based on the psychology of our relationship with our siblings and our family. It's like, my way of working is based on the sciences, the behavioral science, the science of psychology, and the science of cultural anthropology, which is the science of humankind and history, which creates culture and all that kind of stuff. And so it's like, so it becomes, there's a math to everything, 12 steps. When you look at all the different patterns that I've created for playing drunk, for playing a serial killer, for playing somebody who is pregnant. There's an actual patterns that I've created, kind of an equation that actually makes you organically feel pregnant, organically feel drunk. So it's like taking the information from my studies of those particular sciences, and creating the real details of what makes people people. Because people aren't a mush; they are the details of all the years they've been on this planet. And that actually works for kids too, because my daughter teaches kids, and she said they get it. They get it because they don't have the haze of rationalization, of, like, giving taking the onus off of people, because kids feel purely, they're so focused and wanting to go after what they want. whether it's bratty or not, it doesn't matter. The focus is so pure that we forgive them even the worst of behaviors. Whereas as adults, when they know what they're doing is wrong, it just comes off as evil. So we always have to come from a place of a child's like enthusiasm and focus and forward motion, which makes
Yeah.
for, I mean, everybody's favorite performances are always little people in big people's bodies. Think about it.
Definitely, that's so true. And I think I jumped straight on to point 3 of the article because I got so excited by celebrate your flaws, fears, and insecurities. But number 1, the first bit you say is make sure that your overall objective provides a primal human need that creates a universal journey, one that everyone in the world can support and cheer for. And that is so key, isn't it? You know, that is the fundamental part to all of this.
Well, if you start to like, let's say you're playing a lawyer and you're just coming from a point of view of a lawyer, it's like a tiny fraction of the world are going to understand the needs of a lawyer's journey. But if you come from a place of, I want to get my power back, that's why I became a lawyer, then the primal reality that everybody understands that, and you get international attention that way. Awards, international attention, and international connection to the world. Uh, and the world gets smaller and smaller and smaller because of the internet, because of all the different platforms um, that we never had before. So we need to, it's our duty to be able to allow people to feel I'm not alone here when I'm in Mongolia to that person that's in South America. We're all the same. And it's interesting to me since I actually been to Mongolia and my book is in Mongolian. And they asked me, the president of the country asked me if he could if he could have the book to give out to the universities and the high schools as one of their textbooks, because he thought that it was would be really helpful to for the people of Mongolia, because he felt the world that I described in the book was the world that he and his people lived, and so it's like it's really important for us to connect the world again as artists. We're empowering the world through the arts. And that means that the basis of psychology, we're all basically the same. What creates culture is how we negotiate life through what the weather is like, how agriculture, what grows there, um, how religions are formed, same thing. All these things are based on the needs of the needs that how we negotiate life through the needs of weather and agriculture and the land and what it can bring and it's all that. It's very again very fascinating. And if we look at the world of I'm just trying to be truthful and honest, to be kind of boring. We want to explore the world from all its little details and all the things that come up and you know for all of us that there's so much to learn about human beings. We're a fascinating lot, you know,
We
and
are. Definitely.
and also, you know, the idea of this takes away the lazy factor because a lot of actors get lazy, and it's not because they're lazy fundamentally. It's just because they don't know. Nobody's given them the tools to explore from a place of fascination.
Because that's another point. Have a strong work ethic. Success in any field takes time and work. And that's obviously another point that you put in the article. And that is true. It takes
Love.
time.
And love. You gotta love what you do. So, and again, the fascination of understanding, like a character who's is a killer or somebody who is a nun or whatever it is. It's like, why? Why is the power of why? Why is that person do that to pick that the profession? Why this person fall in love with an abusive person? Why is it again the power of why we do the things we do and exploring the why um, again is creates joy because it's really fun to learn.
Yeah.
It is, and that's why I think I have the best job in the world to educate the arts because I mean I a lot of people ask me, would you ever like do you ever miss going back to acting and being an actor yourself? And I'm saying, what I do is like, I love what I do so much. And I get offers all the time to, I work with a lot of directors and a lot of writer producers, but I said, look, I love the fact that I can explore through my people all these different characters I would never be able to play because I'm physically wrong, the wrong age or whatever. But I can do it within my environment of being an educator.
Yeah.
And so I love what I do. I think it's amazing. Love is very important part of the work ethic, by the way. I wouldn't want to work 60, 80, 90 hours a week when I work
No.
every day. I work 7 days a week. And what I miss was when I'm on vacation, when I'm not working, I miss the work.
Yeah.
I
And
hate
that's,
holidays because we don't get to work. So I
yeah.
find I find someone at Christmas time who's Jewish, so we don't have to worry about it. We can work on that.
You're like, we're fine, we can keep going, it's all good, doesn't bother me. And another one, I think, a point that was quite interesting is sexuality is key to creating chemistry with other people. And again, I was wondering if you could just expand a little bit on that for our members.
Well, I want to say, like, I often like put humor and sexuality is a very important energy. Humor can cure illnesses. Humor is a very powerful energy, as is sexuality. Sexuality is the power of creation. You create with your sexuality human beings. It doesn't get any more creative than that, right? And
Nope.
so if you look at the chakras, all the chakras and the energy resources, you think that the third eye, which is enlightenment, would be the most important one, or the heart would be the most important one, but it's not. It's the sex chakra that is the most important one. The reason why sports figures will not have sex before they have a big game, because that energy resource needs to be contained to create the ability to win anything. And of course, what I look at is like we have this different areas that actors have to attach. Their heart, everybody knows that. Their guts, that's their pain, their issues, that kind of stuff. The intellect, because that's an important resource as well. But the sexuality people are so afraid of, even though that's mostly it's the thing that you can walk across, you cross somebody in a mall and have this immediate connection and never say a word to that person because there's this the human animal comes out and immediately has this pheromone connecting resource that we could do, never knowing somebody's language, not knowing what their religious beliefs are, who they want to vote for politically or anything, but you feel this, I need to talk to this person, I need to connect to this person. That's that's the body part. So we got body, we got your anger resource, we've got your heart, your emotions, and your intellect. It's just an important part of being the human animal. So, but people are afraid of it because it is such a large energy. And whenever I bring it up on all the places around the world, it doesn't even matter what country it is, it gets massive amounts of giggles. Why?
Mm.
Because it's like it makes you laugh. It makes your body feel connected to on a cellular level to somebody else. On a cellular level, nothing else. The heart doesn't do that, And but it's more safe to think about your emotions than it is to think about your sex. I haven't figured that out why it's so unsafe for people because I think it's a profound courage connecting force. You're creating
Yeah.
life. The energy is such, to me, it's like it's about bravery. Bravery is like it's a huge important. We always will support a brave person. And so to not to negate, say, well, I got my heart involved, I got this involved, but this can't go to the body, does not go to the body. But if you look at Freud, Freud said that his psychology was always about there's a connecting force even in familial relationships. You just don't do anything about it because then it becomes an illness. If but it's always in the air because the human animal is an animal.
Yeah.
So in terms, again, science, biology, physiology, It's like, it's not, and sex, whoa, we're talking about sex. We can't do that. Or we could talk about the human animal, the resource of what connects us to people. It's like, this is an example I always give. You have 3 hours to spend with somebody. One person is a scintillating conversationalist, but you have zero desire to have sex with that person.
Okay. Yeah.
Or you have 3 hours to spend with someone that you want to have so much sex with, that's all you can think about, but that person is kind of dumb and not particularly scintillating. So who do you want to spend the 3 hours with? The person you want to have sex with.
Yeah.
But this is the interesting thing that human beings do. They imbue intelligence and humor to the person they want to have sex with. So all of a sudden, that person became smarter and funny. So when you cease to want to have sex with that person, you go like, "How that person got so dumb, and they're not funny
Mhm.
anymore. They lost their sense of humor." Well, they're not different. They're just the way your body no longer wants them. So your body is not, your brain's not saying, well, I got to add the other stuff to it to make me not seem so surfacey.
That's very interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I can relate.
We also.
So there's a couple of questions we've had from members. I'm just going to ask this one. Can you use the technique for both theatre and screen successfully? Is I imagine it's transferable to both, but I thought I better just check.
Well, it's in order to recreate human beings, which is what we're doing. It doesn't make any difference where you happen to be, whether you're film or on stage. I work with Judith Light, and the only person in the history of Tonys that's ever won back-to-back Tonys is Judith Light.
Yeah.
And so that's theater. I've helped people take, their theater productions all over the world and um, get their Tony. And of course, you know that I've helped people get television awards and movie awards, but I've helped people get stage awards all over the world, everywhere.
Mhm.
Not everywhere, but like everywhere. That they'll actually translate the script for me, so I could help them. Work on it. But again, the idea is that if you're thinking that different um, venues create different needs, it's just not the case.
Mm.
It's like real. It's like, just think of it this way: great acting is great acting, no matter where you put it.
Yeah, I
And,
totally.
and a casting director, because you knew you were in casting, I used to be in casting too. And it's really important that actors do what's going to get cast, because you can't. I always say you can't take good feedback to the bank. You have to get the job to go to the bank. And so the idea is you have to make the casting and the director, the producers relate to your journey, because it becomes a primal journey that you need to. So it's like whether it's on film that you're being cast or on stage that you're being cast, that their experience of why they want to cast you is the same experience as a human being going, I relate to that person. That's why I laugh in the right places and cry in the right places, because you're telling my story.
Yeah. And this one is actually interesting because obviously we're just talking about sexuality and things, but it says how to create chemistry with another actor when there isn't none. Is there anything that you can do, or is there any kind of advice that you can give if there maybe is someone that you're reading with that isn't giving you what you feel you need in that particular scene?
Well, I have an exercise called the chemistry exercise, which is a twofold exercise. It's in the book, so you can read how to do it. But it's basically taking the commonality of pain, which is the feeling of the connection with the other person, that you have the same issues, that the other person has the same issues that you do, that you feel that you two understand something in a way that nobody else gets you. So a profound understanding of similar experience and similar reactions to those experience. And then sexual fantasy. You directly follow that with silly sexual fantasy about the other person, ones that make you giggle. And you put the depth, connect that to the to your body, your sexuality, and all of a sudden, ta-da, chemistry. And the actual exercise takes maybe 5 seconds to do, and it creates immediate chemistry, a chemical, a real chemical chemistry. And you could do that like with the, you know what, it's not just for acting. You could do that. You could do this also with your DP, because he'll lovingly shoot you, with your the gaffer who will lovingly light you, with the waiter, the bartender who's serving you drinks will keep topping you off. And it's it's like
Yeah.
honestly, people feel when they feel that connection, they don't know why, but they just feel it coming from you, and it connects and becomes symbiotic, and it connects. And so once I teach people the chemistry exercise, I make them just do it anywhere. I had a girl who decided to try it on the subway, and the guy was holding a paper, and so he wasn't even looking at her, and she was doing the exercise. First commonality of pain, then sexual fantasy exercise. Again, maybe 3 4 seconds to do it all. And he put down his paper. He started telling her really personal stuff about himself, like, and then his stop came up about 10 minutes later, and he said, "That is really weird. I never talk to strangers on the subway, like ever." Well, have a nice life, and he left, you know? So it wasn't like he was trying to pick her up or anything. It was just he felt connected to her because of the exercise. But
Mhm.
it's great exercise, and it works to get jobs, any job. People always
Yeah.
want to be around somebody that they have a crush on. And so you have to create that crush. Because if in casting they have two people, down to the wire, two people, they don't want to pick the person they want to spend all day with.
Yeah.
So, so creating crushes is helpful with the chemistry exercise.
That is very interesting. I'm gonna message you after that for that technique.
Okay,
um,
sweetheart.
and another one that we've had is can you expand on the inner monologue and how can we use this to our benefit? That was another question that one of our members sent us.
Well, it's really important to read the chapter in inner monologue because it's hard to describe exactly how you practically use it, but just know that when the people that are getting the good reviews, and the reasons why people get cast is not from the way you say a line. It's from the behavior that happens in between, how you listen. I call it active listening. How you um, have those moments where you're not speaking and nobody's speaking. That's all filled with inner monologue because we don't stop thinking because we're not talking. In fact, we can think of more things when we are not speaking, when the speaking process is actually a unilateral process. So when we're listening or just having a private moment and no speaking, we could be thinking about what we're feeling about what the other person is saying, how we feel about it, what we want to do about it, how if we're going to lie about how our reactions to it. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it happens pretty rapidly. And so it just creates all this wonderful behavior. I work with, I was saying before, a lot of directors, a lot of writer producers, and they show me the tapes of the reasons why they picked that particular person for the job. And they'd say, look at how they were doing this, or look at how they're listening, or look at the behavior they're doing there. And it's so funny because it's so rare when I hear, look how they said that line. And so actors are always about lines are lifelines. They're not. Those moments that are precious are the ones that usually you're not speaking. The clips that they show on at the Oscars are often when they're not speaking, they're behaving. I had a woman who's a reporter who was giving me was interviewing me, and she said I also happen to review Vikings, and I happen to work with the person who was the star of Vikings, Travis Fimmel. And so this reporter said, do you want me to tell you that my favorite scenes of his? And I said, sure, that'd be great. And she picked almost every scene she picked was ones that he didn't have hardly any dialogue or no dialogue, and but she also read his mind. He said, when he was thinking this and thinking that, I'm going, oh my God, that's exactly what we were thinking. That's called inner monologue. So when people are reading your mind and getting that, they feel part of your secret world. So it connects you, fills the screen or the stage too, and it also it makes people think that they're part of your inner world because you
Yeah.
are. It speaks volumes. It's loud. so loud thought thinking.
Loud,
So
yeah.
loud thinking. And when one of the one of Judith Light's Tony's was one of it was a play that I remember the whole idea of it, she was just came out of rehab. She was an alcoholic and she was like now in that place of that month later when your feelings are all like this. There was a scene where there was five people on stage, one monologue after another. She's had very little to say, if anything. Basically, we had filled up every monologue with inner monologue, their
Yeah.
monologue we were thinking about. But because she just got out of rehab, we came up with the idea that because she's so paranoid, she just got out of rehab, that even though the person's monologue was about somebody else, she's saying, I know you're just still disguising it about me because you don't like me and you have a
Mm.
problem with me, but I'm in the room, so you can't say anything. And it ended up creating this really interesting behavior. She couldn't stop, digging a hole in her head from her hair because she became very mannered from just the inner thoughts that she wasn't even aware that she was even doing. It created all this, and that was just one of the behaviors that happened out of it. But we filled in, you don't just fill in the words that you say, we fill in everything everybody's saying around you because it's just so, um, it's just so much you could do with that. This is where
Yeah.
the greatness is in details. Let's think about the detail of that.
I think, well, actually, on my notes, scribbled everywhere, if you could see down here, is one thing that I just kept picking up, and it just is you've got to take risks, never play it safe. And I think that is, well, that's just key, isn't it, really? And everywhere, the different articles that I was reading and interviews of you, that I think comes up a lot. It just says, do it, go for it, don't sit in your comfort zone.
Well, one of the things that the directors can, it's the easiest thing to say, pull it back. But to create a performance, it takes a lot more words and energy. And they want someone who's going to bring them so much that all they have to say is pull it back. And if they even want to pull it back, oftentimes they don't want to. They like all that crazy stuff that you're doing. Make bold choices because it's scary. Most people make safe choices. That's just human beings. But it's not the mark of a dynamic person. We're trying to recreate not just life. We're trying to recreate life from a dynamic human being. Dynamic comes from somebody or winner. So it comes from someone who takes the worst of circumstances and said, I'm not only going to win in spite of, but because of this stuff that's getting in my way. So that's a mark of a dynamic person. I want to watch that journey. And so, but you have to take risks. That's part of the bravery. You have to take risks in doing, jumping off the proverbial mountain into to the sea, and it is something that we sit at the edge of our seats for, like emotional bravery, emotional heroism, because it's really easy to make safe choices. I call it the path of least resistance is being safe.
Yeah.
Now, but the path of most resistance, which is the one where anything could stop you and kill you and hurt you and destroy your life, if you get to the other side of that, wow, I want to watch that. I'm going to use
We all
another.
do.
I'm going to use another one of my metaphors. It's like the idea of if I just put paint. I just put I just put red paint on my wall. Now it's drying. It's truthfully and honestly drying, and it does change colors. Wet paint changes slight color to becoming a different version of that color once it's dry. Do I want to watch 2 hours of paint drying? No. It's honest, it's real. And so the thing is, when actors say, well, I just want to keep it real, keep it real. And I said, well, you got to take chances to make it interesting real. Yes, you always have to keep it, honest and real, but make choices that are risky so it becomes an enjoyable for you and for the other person to watch, or the other person you're acting with to be a part of, and then the audience to watch. And again, we have so many platforms, so many choices. Why should I pick yours? Or why should I pick your performance to cast? Why should I pick your show to watch? Because you took the chance to really hit bottom, like in terms of for the character, and then personalizations of that, and then how we use this information to, in spite of and because of, to win as the character, and then because the personalizations make it real for us, that it becomes I'm winning and accomplishing and overcoming for me, and then again the transfers over to your audience.
This might be, I'm laughing because I'm thinking it's $1 million question. But from your perspective, what do you think the formula is for success in this business? Because, you know, everyone is on their own road in this industry. You know, we're all going down our own different lanes. What do you think is that formula that can really, well, propel you to your next chapter, really? Because I think some people, especially maybe in 2020, I can think, you know, thinking about things, you know, where to go next. Is there anything, any advice you'd offer to them, you know, saying now, actually, this is maybe something you could do to kind of change it up or to refocus?
Well, I just think it's important that people realize just because you went to drama school doesn't mean it's done educating. I think education continuing to grow. Like, would you go to a doctor who just determined after you went to med school that you didn't need to learn anything more? Would you want to go to that doctor? No, you want someone to keep learning and growing. And part of that's in education, going to acting classes, professional acting classes. And in terms of like, look, mine isn't the only, you know, system in town. There's so many great, you know, systems. Mine is just about being proactive and trying to win with your objective of using pain to create prosperity. Pain powers prosperity, whether it's emotional, spiritual, or actual prosperity. Putting those pieces together makes people feel prosperous to watch you. They see that there's a way to do something. Um, in order for you to be successful, you've got to work hard. Where are you going to work hard? Sit at home and just watch movie after movie or play after play? You have to be on your feet doing it. It's a practical. It's a on your feet practical art form. You can't just read about it. So you need to practice. You know, work ethic in doing that. Take risks in the chances of the choices you make as your inner work. Take risks of the choices you make in your behavior. Don't be afraid to take chances. Take big risks, and people will applaud you and be envious that you can, because most people are so fearful. And then comedy, humor, all drama should have comedy in it. All comedy should have drama in it. It's called three dimensionality of life. And to not take everything so seriously. If you're not having fun, you've made the wrong choices. I tell actors this all the time. You want to have fun and explore whatever it is that you're doing, no matter how evil you are. You need to have the choices have to create a journey of fun and joy and catharsis. And the sexuality, because that's always fun to be around someone that you feel, you know, the connection with. You want your audience to feel that they, if they met you, they could be with you, that you're that accessible. And so they want you to be in their living room or be on their stage or whatever, and they follow you around. So, you know, the Star is Born is like work ethic, taking chances, make sure you always find the humor in the darkness, and the darkness in the humor, and the sexual, you know, energy that goes, the sexual underbelly that always is affecting to all human beings.
Yeah, that is. I mean, honestly, thank you so much. I mean, we're nearly, you know, coming to the end of our hour, which is
What?
Tell
me so.
I looked at the clock and I was like, oh my goodness. This is just a quick question, but it says, are all steps critical for all scripts / all auditions? If not, which ones would you choose if there was very little time to prepare for something? Because obviously with castings, they can come in on the day and a turnaround is required. Is there anything that you would say really focus on? I mean, I imagine all 12 steps are very important, but is there anything you would say?
12 steps are there so you can, sometimes there's two steps you absolutely always have to have. It's about telling story. It's overall objective and then scene objective, because you have to support the overall objective. So you're telling a story. The script itself has an overall objective, and you have to be a part of telling the story that the writer wrote. The so the script has an overall objective. Your character has an overall objective that has to support the script's overall objective, and your scene objectives have to support your overall objective. Because then you're telling a beginning, middle, and end story. Otherwise, you just you go straight to the emotional world. The emotional world is it's just it lays there, it doesn't do things. Emotions don't move. Telling a story, the objectives have a beginning, middle, end, have an arc to it. Basic storytelling needs to have it, absolutely. Overall objective, scene objective. Then the rest of the stuff is all about personalizations. Sometimes you need a lot of the tools for the personalization. Sometimes you need just some of them. But it's just only just to make your objectives more necessary, more historical, and more real and more urgent. All the other tools are for that. So if you feel like this is like a scene in a horror film, your overall objective, scene objective, and then probably place it would be really important to put in for the horror aspect, and substitution, so you can really feel afraid of the other human being who's chasing after you, for example. Maybe some inner objects here and there. But the personalization part is just to make the objectives more important, more necessary, more desperate, and more truthful and real. Um, so that's essential, because most actors come and go into auditions, because you used to be in casting, and they sit there and they try to just emotionalize, and then it doesn't move any place. It also becomes very victimy when human beings sit there and over emotionalize. Why is it our experience of that person as an actor going to be any different than our human experience with the person outside of the casting room? And so we have to be aware that people who are sitting in the casting position, whether it's casting director, producers, they're just people. And they're responding to you like people. They don't all of a sudden change their inner being to become a different kind of person that's saying like, I'm only thinking in terms of craft and what you're not doing and doing. No, they're just going, I like you. You're affecting me. I'm relating to your experience. And so I want you to be cast. So it's really as simple as human being to human being, and humanizing the person that's in the room, and as opposed to being intimidated by them. And that's easier said than done, but if you humanize it, human being to human being, it's just like going to a party and like meeting a new person and making that connection.
Having a chat. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for today. The Power of the Actor. I've read it, and to all of you today who haven't, I would really recommend. It's in many different languages. So I would really.
And one last thing, it's called The Power of the Actor. It's not called The Victim of the Actor. It's not called The Emotions of the Actor. It's called The Power of the Actor. And it's really important because actors have a tendency to give away their power. This whole system is about empowering you to empower your audience. Keep that in mind. It's the most important thing that I want. That's a legacy I want to leave while I'm alive, and after I'm dead, is to leave that you can be empowered with your pain, and therefore empower your audiences with theirs. This is our duty, our job, our obligation, and it's a good one to have. So it's the power of the actor. And I want everybody to be empowered by this conversation, because I feel empowered by it. Because just so everybody knows, just because I preach this doesn't mean I don't go through stuff. Life happens to me, and I'm going through all kinds of personal issues right now that are very daunting. But I try to practice what I preach, and try to like, what do I need to learn from this? How do I grow from this? What's the message that I'm trying to? What am I not doing? that's creating a big, what am I doing or not doing that's creating a bigger problem than it needed to be, so it's like, it's a constant conversation you have with yourself as the actor breaking down the script, or writer or director breaking down the script, um, or it's and then therefore goes into your personal reality of how you can take that same information into your life as well. And I wanted to leave everybody with that thought. Also, you're going to be sending all the people.
Yes, everyone who's attended today, we will have a list of, and just to say to you all that we will email you with some follow-up information provided by Ivana, which we will then circulate via email, so you can have a look into that, read at your leisure, and that will give you all the information that you should need to move forward, hopefully, with this really exciting technique. And I thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today, and I think we can take a lot from this conversation. And
I know I did, and thank you, Mel, for being you.
thank you. Happy Tuesday, everyone, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you. Bye.